Well, Project Tiger was launched on the 1st of April 1973. It was launched at Corbett National Park, and it was launched by Dr. Karan Singh, who was the chairman of the Indian Board on Wildlife. But the entire architect, the person who conceived it, who formulated it, and who pushed it, was the Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi, at that time. See, it had been in the making for a couple of years. Remember, there was a moratorium that was imposed on the shooting of tigers in 1970. And then we had the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Before that, there was the Assembly of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, which first brought to public attention the extent to which the tigers and many other species, including the lions and so on, were endangered. In the 3 years that we had, 66, 67, 68, these were famine years. And there were large-scale reports of poaching, people poaching in wildlife areas, particularly in the eastern part of the country, in the central part of the country. And that's what led Indira Gandhi to then impose a ban on shooting of tigers and other wild animals. And then the Wildlife Protection Act came into being in 1972. And then Project Tiger got launched. So, the background was the Prime Minister herself was a dedicated conservationist. She was a great environmentalist, believer in the protection of wildlife. Incidentally, there's a general belief that Project Tiger is the first program. No, it's not true. On the 15th of January 1972, the first conservation program that Indira Gandhi launched was the Gir Lion Sanctuary Project. That was on the 15th of January 1972. And subsequently, on the 1st of April 1973, Project Tiger was launched. And nine reserves were identified. Corbett, Ranthambore, Kanha, Melghat, Bandipur, Simlipal, Palamu, Manas, and Sundarbans. These were the 9 tiger areas that were identified. Today, of course, we have 53 tiger reserves in the country, and we have a National Tiger Conservation Authority. So it's a long story, but it began at Corbett on the 1st of April 1973. Well, Mrs. Gandhi, although she didn't go to the launch of the Project Tiger in Corbett, she sent a message. And the most important thing in her message was that by launching Project Tiger, we are launching a project not just to protect the tiger, but we are launching a program to protect our forests. We're the forest ecosystem, habitat. Today these words like habitat and ecosystem everybody uses. But remember, we are talking of the early 1970s, when the public awareness was not as deep and as widespread as it is. So, the net result of the last 50 years, today if you take the 53 tiger reserves in the country, they cover about 10% of the forest area, the total forest area. But they cover 1/3 of the densely rich, very rich forests. So, we have not only protected the tigers, but in my view, the outstanding accomplishment has been the protection of our forest areas. It's not just tigers, there are also people, the people living in the tiger area. So, how do you deal with this? Of course, then we came up with this policy, in 2005, 2006, when the National Tiger Conservation Authority was set up. We came up with the incentives for relocation, but we still have about 50,000 people living in the core and the buffer areas of our tiger reserves. That challenge still remains, so it's not just protecting forests, it's not just protecting tigers, but it's also ensuring livelihood security for the people. And I think that third objective is something that we became much more sensitive as we went along. And that's why we passed the Forest Rights Act in 2006. Some amount of relocation, the Bhadra Tiger Reserve in Karnataka is a very good example of how relocation took place. There's been some relocation that's taken place in Rajaji, some relocation that has been taken place in Sariska, in Ranthambore. But this is a big challenge, How do you ensure the livelihood security of the people in and around tiger habitats? And we've had two great successes in the last 10 years. There were two tiger reserves where the tiger population had come down to zero. Zero! Sariska had come down to zero and Panna had come down to zero. Today Sariska has about 28 tigers and Panna has about 75, 80 tigers. So these are the two great success stories, of translocation within India. So I would say that, we have problems. As I said, the biggest problem is the problem of ensuring livelihood security. We have problems on poaching, no doubt about it. We have problems of man-animal conflict in certain areas, which we have to manage. But on balance, I think Project Tiger is indeed a landmark in the conservation movement in India. Also, it's interesting. Project Tiger was launched 5 days after the Chipko movement was launched in Uttarakhand. People don't normally draw the link between the Chipko movement. What is the Chipko movement? Chipko movement is the movement to protect forests. Movement of women, of the hill women of then UP, now Uttarakhand, to protect the forests in the hills. Project Tiger was also a project not just to protect the species, the tiger, which is a symbol, but also to protect the forests. But the Chipko movement, people mattered. In Project Tiger, tiger mattered. The two now have to co-mesh. You have to get the policy, the philosophy of the Chipko movement and the philosophy of Project Tiger now to converge.